My old friend Tim Blair, I was checking his page at the Daily Telegraph website in Sydney, Australia, and he had a link to this amazing video footage of New York City workers totaling a Ford Explorer. There's a front loader that's stuck in the snow, supposed to be clearing snow, and it gets stuck. So another city vehicle comes along, pulls it out. They know they're sliding into this Ford Explorer, but they go ahead and rip the whole back of the van, while people are standing around watching, and they don't care. They hear all the it's an amazing 4 minutes of video. They hear all the crunching as they're totaling this car, but what do they care? They're in the union. They're government workers, and this is just this guy who owns the Ford Explorer. Who cares about him? He's just a private citizen who pays their wages. So why not total his van? Amazing example of Mayor Bloomberg's government in action. And Mayor Bloomberg, of course, is one of these technocrat geniuses. The new school of politician, post-partisan, no labels. He's the poster boy for the no labels movement. These no labels guys launched a couple of weeks ago. They got a big theme song. I forget what is it? Imagine there's no labels. It's easy if you try. No, we're not Republican. We're not Democrat. We're just can-do technocrats who know how to get the job done. Bloomberg has failed to get the job done. Bloomberg has catastrophically failed. What it says here? He says the rule of thumb is that Jason Post, spokesman for Mayor Bloomberg, says every inch costs $1 million. That's like that's the same as some of the bigger name porn stars, by the way. Every inch costs $1 million. Believe me, by the standards of New York government, that is actually cheap. New York City government spends billions and billions and billions. It's got I think by various estimates, it's got a deficit of between $2 and $4 billion. So $1 million per inch of snow removal is nothing in the great sucking maw of New York municipal government. But they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. It was beyond the ability of Mayor Bloomberg to clear the streets in an expeditious manner. Now, he famously said to people, I think this was it yesterday or the day before, it was Monday that Mayor Bloomberg told people, hey, just because there's a bit of snow falling on the city, don't let that disrupt your plans. There's never been a better time to see a Broadway show. See a Broadway show tonight. And he's being attacked as the equivalent, that's the equivalent of saying let them eat cake. Queens Councilman Eric Ulrich, who was sworn in by Bloomberg when he won his seat in 2009, said the mayor telling New Yorkers to see a Broadway show was like Marie Antoinette saying, let the people eat cake. It's a tragedy, actually, because I believe Monday, when he told them to go and see a Broadway show, that was actually the one night that Spider-Man was working. Unfortunately, the city wasn't working, so if you did manage to get to Spider-Man, you saw the one functioning part of New York City. Mayor Bloomberg, I recommend all fans of Mayor Bloomberg go back a couple of years. I think this was in 2007. Time magazine had a big cover story headlined "The New Action Heroes," and it showed posed together in the photograph Michael Bloomberg and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Remember him, Arnold Schwarzenegger? He was big for 20 minutes during the Gray Davis recall in California. I don't know what's happened to him since then. But Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael Bloomberg, the new action heroes. They're not like these do-nothings in Congress. They're not mired in partisan bickering. These guys are men of action, and they're getting things done. Bloomberg, we were told by Time magazine, he was, quote, opening a climate summit and talking about saving the planet, unquote. Not just any bit of the planet, but the whole thing, everything, every bit of the planet west of the Holland Tunnel. Mayor Bloomberg was saving. Unfortunately, while he was busy saving the planet, he was unable to plow 7th Avenue or the East River Drive or the Triborough Bridge. Thank you, Mayor Bloomberg. Thank you, Mayor Bloomberg. Times Michael Grunwald. This is a fascinating piece. 3 years ago, the new action heroes. Quote, they're tackling not just the climate, writes Michael Grunwald. because he certainly does want to give the impression that, Bloomberg is the sort of slacker who bunks off for golf after lunch. No, sir, these new action heroes, quote, are doing things that Washington has failed to do. Bloomberg, coos Grunwald, quote, also enacted America's most draconian smoking ban and the first big city trans fat ban. So if you're standing in the middle of the street watching city workers trash your Ford Explorer, you can't even light up a cigarette within a certain amount of feet of a building and watch and watch what city workers are doing to your Ford Explorer. This is big government. The bigger government gets, the more government tries to do, the less it actually does, until, like New Yorkers, you wind up waking up in a city that never plows. They can't do, they've got the same level of highway clearance now that they have in the high passes of the Hindu Kush in Afghanistan, where they're totaled every year by the brutal Afghan winter, because in 5,000 years of Pushtun history, nobody thought to invent the snowplow. And as the Hindu Kush goes, so goes New York City. New York City projected deficit is somewhere between $2 billion and $3.6 billion, according to Comptroller John New. They can't even get the deficit right, closest to the nearest $1 billion. Their budget for financial year 2010, New York City, budget is $63.1 billion. $63.1 billion, but they're complaining because every inch of snow removal now costs $1 million. So there'd be no possibility. It would be unreasonable. It would be unreasonable to expect New York City to be able to plow snow and keep the streets clear in an expeditious manner. I'm furious at Mayor Bloomberg. He's a rich man, so he doesn't care about the little people, said New Enrico's car service livery driver, Julio Carpio, speaking in Spanish. I have to work. Why aren't people out there playing? Why does the mayor always go on TV the night before to say, we're all set with a fleet of salt trucks, and then you never see a single truck? Because those salt trucks, if you see a salt truck in New York under Mayor Bloomberg, is because he's taken the salt out of your cheeseburger and they're trucking it to a landfill over in New Jersey. Mayor Bloomberg, you thought he was taking all the salt out of your fatty fast foods to put it on the East River Drive? No, sirree. He doesn't believe in salt for your cheeseburger or for New York City streets. He's going to be plowing those streets with fair trade skimmed latte froth. And that'll do magic. They're now saying that it'll be after New Year's before New York City infrastructure will be functioning again. Hundreds of abandoned city buses, dozens of ambulances. By the way, it's a good thing. It's a good thing liberals don't worry about the Iranian nuclear program, because this is pretty much a good glimpse of how things would go if Ahmadinejad ever did manage to pull anything off in New York City. Shutdowns of airports, hundreds of abandoned city buses, and dozens of ambulances sitting in the middle of snowdrifts. A newborn baby died in Brooklyn. They placed a call. The mother of this child had been forced to give birth in the lobby of her apartment building. A snowbound Brooklyn building. They placed a call to 911, and nobody got to her. In one of the most densely populated cities in the first world, nobody got to her for 9 hours because Crown Heights was not plowed. By the time they finally got through to the lobby of this building, the baby was unconscious and unresponsive, and the baby died. This is embarrassing. This is the can-do technocrat mayor. The can-do technocrat mayor, who presumes to regulate the trans fat contents of every food item you buy in New York City. If you go to a fast food joint in New York now and you want to buy a cookie, Nanny Bloomberg has put the number of calories insisted the number of calories be labeled on the cookie when you go into Starbucks and you have a cup of coffee and a cookie or a sandwich or whatever. He's got all that. He's got a vast bureaucracy that can do that, but he cannot plow the streets of New York. He cannot plow the streets of New York. When big government tries to do everything, it fails to do its core responsibilities. We're going to talk more about this because Nanny Bloomberg is in fact a poster child for everything that's gone wrong in American government over the past 75 years. Mark Steyn in for Rush, 1-800-282-2882, live from northern New Hampshire. Lots more still to come. Mark Steyn in for Rush on the EIB network, talking about what New York City tells us about big government. Because let's face it, you got a right, if you live in the city of New York, you got a right to complain about them not being able to plow the streets when they get a heavy snowfall. Because you pay more than almost anybody does in the United States. For city and state services, you know, if you, how's the song go? If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. If you can make it there, you're some kind of genius. Because if you can make it there, they can take it there. Governor Patterson, in 2009 said, "This is the worst fiscal downturn since the Great Depression." So naturally, his response to it was to bring in the biggest tax hike in New York history. Adding the tiny little bits of life that weren't yet taxed in New York. He decided to hone in on. So it's not just you got your state tax, your sales tax, your municipal tax. You got your doubled beer tax, you got your tax on clothing, your tax on cab rides, an iTunes tax on downloads from the internet, a tax on haircuts. 137 new tax hikes in all, brought in by Governor Patterson last year. If you're unclear about what three activities in the state of New York are not taxed anymore, just call 1-800-I-HEART-NEW-YORK today and order your new package of state tax forms for just $199.99, plus the 12% tax on tax forms tax and the 4% tax form application fee, partially refundable upon payment of the 7.5% tax filling tax. If you can make it there, you'll certainly have no difficulty making it in Tajikistan. In New York, everything is taxed. Everything is taxed. Everything you do is taxed. I walked into my office the other day. I'm always complaining on this show because I made the mistake of hiring an employee in New York. And I never like to mention her name on the show because she's sensitive about the fact that she's cost us more paperwork, more form filling, more changes of insurance policy than all our other employees in every single state and in fact across the planet put together. So I won't use her real name. I'll call her Mabel. Let's say Mabel. I walked into the office and our accountants had belatedly discovered that we're liable for something called New York's Quarterly Metropolitan Commuter Transportation Mobility Tax. Right? The Quarterly Metropolitan Commuter Transportation Mobility Tax. My employee in New York, Mabel, the fictitious Mabel, she works from home. So her commute is from her bedroom to her office within her apartment, from her bedroom to a corner of her living room. And yet we still have to pay the Quarterly Metropolitan Commuter Transportation Mobility Tax. What actually did it come out at, Tiffany? Well, I don't want to know. It's too frightening. Anyway, we paid the Quarterly Metropolitan Commuter Transportation Mobility Tax. And where is the transportation mobility in New York? I live in New Hampshire and I'm paying the lousy Quarterly Metropolitan Commuter Transportation Mobility Tax for New York City, and I don't see any transportation mobility in New York City. The whole lousy town is at a standstill. I would love to hear from New Yorkers. What do you get for having every single activity in your city taxed to the hilt? What do you get for the lousy Metropolitan Commuter Transportation, Quarterly Metropolitan Commuter Transportation Mobility Tax? I paid it, and I can't even fly into New York today. There's no transportation mobility in your whole lousy city. Why are you not embarrassed at the fact that every single activity is taxed to the hilt in New York, and you have nothing to show for it? When you need government, on one of the rare occasions when you need government, it ain't there for you. It ain't there for you. You've got stupid taxes on everything. You've got bagel slicing tax. Every time you buy a bagel at a New York deli, you have to pay 8 cents slicing tax on the bagel. What do you get for your 8 cents? Can they plow the street outside the deli so you can get to the deli and pay for your high tax bagel? No. The more government does, the more government tries to do, the less it does what it should be doing.